The wheels are only ever driven by an electric motor, and that means that we can control the engine that's generating the electricity separately to the driving speed and the acceleration. But we've also added another technology, which is active noise cancellation. So very similar to the headphones that you use on the aeroplane, we have a speaker in the luggage room of the car that will play the inverse noise to the engine and cancel it out. So when you're driving around the city, the engine can start and stop, and you won't even notice it's happening.
Boat fire at Cape Jaffa and show volunteers abused. Good morning, Josh Brydon in the southeast with ABC News. A commercial fishing boat has been seriously damaged by fire at Cape Jaffa last night. Just after 8 p.m, 15 Country Fire Service volunteers and SA Police responded to the fire at the town's boat ramp. CFS crews worked in and around the fire to bring it under control, preventing it from spreading to a nearby boat. No one was on board at the time, but the vessel sustained extensive damage, with losses estimated at about $800,000. The president of the Millicent Agricultural, Horticultural and Pastoral Society says members of his committee have been the targets of abusive messages criticising the work they do. The group puts on the Millicent Show each year, with a small number of people volunteering to organise the 3-day event. Brett Keatley says the messages are baseless and make it harder for people to justify volunteering their time.
It makes them wonder why they're actually doing it. They think, oh, maybe I'm not doing the right thing, so somebody else can have a go at doing it. There's a retaining thing there that then you've got to try and fill that spot. And I think everybody's having trouble with volunteers and whatnot these days.
The federal government is expected to bank any extra revenue generated by the Iran war in the forthcoming federal budget. Political reporter Samantha Dick has more.
With less than a fortnight to go, Treasurer Jim Chalmers says this year's federal budget will be the government's most responsible yet. The government is expecting a boost to revenue, partly driven by higher inflation and higher prices for commodities such as coal and gas during the Iran war. Budget analyst Chris Richardson estimates the boon could tip about $36 billion extra dollars into government coffers over 4 years. But Treasurer Jim Chalmers has confirmed any additional revenue from the war will be saved and used to pay down debt, now forecast to reach $1 trillion next financial year.
A climatologist says there's a high likelihood an El Niño weather system could arrive before winter. The last recorded El Niño developed from spring 2023 to early 2024, bringing dry conditions and low rainfall. Independent climatologist Darren Ray says weather systems like these typically last for 9 to 12 months.
It means that we'll see very hot, dry conditions developing through winter, drier than average winter, particularly spring. So very hot, dry spring is looking very likely, and that's reflected in some of the modelling of conditions.
SA Police will be targeting dangerous drivers from today after a spate of lives lost on South Australian roads last week. Operation Danger will run until Sunday, where police will target risk-taking behaviours. This includes following cars too closely, disobeying traffic lights, failing to give way and changing lanes when there's no room. So far, 41 lives have been lost on SA roads this year. Researchers say fox predation, four-wheel drives and weather extremes are taking their toll on bird numbers in the Coorong. Teams from Adelaide and Flinders Universities, BirdLife Australia and other conservation groups came together to monitor the nests of pied oyster catchers along Coorong Ocean Beach. Cameras set up along the beach found foxes impacted around 40% of nests, with only around 37% considered successful. Dr. Thomas Prowse says the birds are an important local species.
By far and away, foxes were causing the most damage. So around 40% of nests were actually being predated by foxes along the Ocean Beach, Young Husband Peninsula area there.
And South Australian students have taken out the top awards at the annual Generations in Jazz event over the weekend. Johnny Turner was awarded the James Morrison Scholarship, while Marina Olinik won the Vocal Scholarship. The weekend's event drew schools from across Australia and New Zealand and included performances by the Australian Youth Jazz Orchestra and American band Tower of Power. Organisers have also announced the dates for next year's 40th anniversary event, running from April the 30th to May the 2nd. Two men have been arrested after police say they located drugs and a large quantity of cash during a search of a Mount Gambier home. Limestone Coast Police allegedly found 28 grams of methamphetamine, 500 millilitres of GHB and more than $32,000 in cash at the property on Sunday night. Police arrested a 30-year-old Mount Gambier man and a 34-year-old man from Penola who were both charged with trafficking a controlled drug and money laundering. Police are urging anyone with information to contact Crime Stoppers. One of South Australia's most senior Anglicans has been stripped of his position over an undisclosed relationship with a priest he ordained in a case described by the church as a gross ethical failure. Catherine Birmingham reports.
Bishop Keith Dalby was in charge of the Diocese of the Murray when he started a relationship with aspiring priest Alison Dutton in early 2023. He ordained her that August, 10 days before they married in a secret civil ceremony. Bishop Dalby did not disclose the relationship to the church until the end of that year. He was asked to resign but refused, and the matter was heard by the Episcopal Standards Board. The board found the bishop breached his vows and was unfit for office, ordering he either resign or be deposed from holy orders. Bishop Dalby told the ABC he's appealing the decision, describing it as harsh and disproportionate.
Primary Industries Regional Development and Forest Industries Minister Claire Scriven has officially been re-elected to the State Legislative Council. The South Australian Electoral Commission officially declared the Upper House results yesterday, with all new and returning members to be sworn in today ahead of Parliament's first sitting. Ms Scriven says she's looking forward to continuing the ministerial work she started in her previous term.
My priorities are going to be really continuing that work around biosecurity, but also looking at how we can grow our primary production areas, how we can grow our forestry sector, how we can make sure that there is a thriving regional South Australia.
The most recent SA Health data shows code blacks and challenging behaviour towards staff are increasing across the state. Code black calls requiring security due to threats or violence were up 5.5% in the year 2023 to 2024. Challenging behaviour, which can include attacks on staff, was up 21%. The former South Australian Salaried Medical Officers Association President, Dr David Pope, told ABC 891 Adelaide the problem is continuing to escalate.
In fact, the data itself is a couple of years old now, and it's even worse from what we're seeing on the ground now. So the trend is ever upward in the number and the severity of the assaults and attacks on staff.
The latest data for 2024 to 2025 is expected to be released by SA Health in the next month or so. A Limestone Coast potato farmer says March's heavy rainfall event has not affected the quality of his crop, but he expects profits this year to be lower. Potato harvest is expected to wrap up over the next 4 to 6 weeks, depending on the weather, with crop yields already looking better than last year. Lachlan Hyson of Hyson Partners says fuel will be the biggest pressure on his bottom line this year.
For us, the timing was most impactful for harvesting itself and also for freight, particularly because at the early and the later stage of our harvest, most growers are sending their loads across to Victoria, so there's a reasonable distance to cover.
And Generations in Jazz has named Dale Cleaves as the inaugural inductee to the festival's Hall of Fame for his contribution to the music event. Mr. Cleaves was a founding figure of the Youth Jazz Festival, playing a pivotal role in securing the OB Flat site where the event is held every year. He's also been recognised for his work to secure government support to further develop the facilities students use each year. A man has faced court after being arrested on drug trafficking and money laundering charges earlier this week. Samuel O'Brien has more.
Limestone Coast Police say they arrested a 30-year-old Mount Gambier man and a 34-year-old man from Penola on Sunday night after searching a Mount Gambier property, allegedly finding 28 grams of methamphetamine, 500 millilitres of GHB and more than $32,000 in cash. Mount Gambier man Samuel Oliver Taylor appeared in the Mount Gambier Magistrates Court on Monday, charged with money laundering and 3 counts of drug trafficking. He's been placed on bail and will appear again in November. The charges against the Penola man have not been laid and police say investigations are continuing.
Crews have responded to 2 structure fires along the Limestone coast last night. At about 7:30 p.m, emergency services attended a commercial structure fire at Beachport. Volunteer firefighters prevented the fire from spreading to nearby boats, but the building was a complete loss, with damages estimated at $350,000. Then, around 11 p.m, CFS firefighters responded to a house and caravan fire at Pinks Beach near Kingston. Firefighters worked to control the fire and prevent it from spreading to a nearby house. All occupants evacuated safely before crews arrived, but both the house and caravan were destroyed, with losses estimated at $350,000. The cause of both fires is yet to be determined. A fuel tank manufacturer says he's seen a peak in inquiries for his products as the impacts of the war in Iran continue to put pressure on farmers. Fuel prices have continued to fall across the country, but many farmers are still concerned about the long-term impacts of fuel prices on their business. Ben Crosby from Foster's Engineering in Narracourt says the rise in interest has not converted to sales.
In the last month and a half, I've probably quoted on 60 tanks, but we've only received 7 or 8 orders. Because of the supply chain issues, everyone's still not sure what to do.
The RAA says expansion of the state's electric vehicle charging infrastructure needs to ramp up as interest booms. It says 1 in 2 SA motorists are considering buying an EV as their next vehicle, with concerns around fuel cost and supply a major factor. Principal Advisor on Energy and Future Mobility Peter Natras says private investment supported by the government is needed to expand the charging network. He says work needs to begin now due to the amount of time it takes to install fast chargers.
We've seen this uptick in EVs being bought, and there's a long lead time of 12 months, 18 months or more to build an EV charging point.
A local foundation aimed at improving palliative care outcomes has handed out its first ever scholarship. The Ryan Bowman Legacy of Care Foundation was set up by Chris and Deb Brooks in honour of Mrs. Brooks' son, who died at the Mount Gambier Hospital last year. The foundation yesterday awarded the scholarship to Adriana Beaumont, who will use the funding to pursue further education in palliative care. Mr. Brooks says they're glad to have the first scholarship recipient named.
The buy-in from all and sundry has been phenomenal. Every door that we've knocked on from a professional standpoint have welcomed us with open arms, and that includes buy-in from the likes of the Vanderbilt University in the US.
Cancer Council SA is launching a bowel cancer awareness campaign through regional and rural football clubs. The organisation is asking sporting organisations to spread the word about screenings for a chance to win a new $20,000 community grant. The campaign is responding to recent data from the Australian Institute of Health and Wellbeing, showing more than half of regional and rural SA is below the National Preventative Health Strategy targets for screenings. Cancer Council SA Prevention Coordinator DM Tan says that figure needs to be higher.
And ultimately, the more people we can get screened, the more lives that we can potentially save from bowel cancer. So that's the ultimate goal there.
Some energy experts have welcomed the federal government's plan to secure Australia's fuel supplies, saying meaningful action is overdue. The government will spend more than $10 billion boosting fuel security as the war in Iran continues to disrupt global supply chains. Next week's budget will include funding to increase minimum fuel stockholding obligations by another 10 days worth to 50 days. Head of Energy Research at MST Financial, Sal Kavanagh, says Australia holds exceptionally low fuel reserves compared to other advanced economies.
We're the only member of the IEA to not meet our 90-day stock levels. So doing something on the policy front to address our vulnerability in fuel is very important, and frankly, there's been a failure of both sides of politics going back over a decade.
The president of a Mount Gambier community kitchen says this week's interest rate rise will increase pressure on locals already doing it tough. On Tuesday, the Reserve Bank raised the official cash rate to 4.35%, the third rate rise this year. Sunset Community Kitchen's Marie Thompson says demand for meals on Monday and Wednesday nights have risen substantially over the past year. She says the latest rise could be the final straw for some in the community.
Everything impacts everyone. You know, you may be renting, but your landlord, if his interest rates have increased, then he's got to recoup that money from someone, and that's got to come from the tenant. Businesses, their interest rate's gone up, so they're going to have to charge more for their services.
A boat fire at Cape Jaffa on Sunday night is believed to be suspicious. SA Police says officers were called to the Cape Jaffa Marina just after 8 o'clock following reports of an explosion and fire. It says crime scene investigators attended the scene and police now believe it is suspicious. While the inquiries into the incident are ongoing, it's not being linked to recent fires at Beachport and Pinks Beach. The state's Environment Minister says she's not ruling anything out to address concerns about the future of SA's National Trust. Regional Trust volunteers are calling for a parliamentary inquiry into the organisation due to unresolved disputes and concerns around its finances. The Trust admits it has 2 years of cash left and will likely need to sell properties to increase funds. Minister Emily Burke says she's investigating options to resolve issues raised.
We've looked at what other states are doing at this very point in time when it comes to the National Trust, whether there's an option to go through the actual national office to find out what options are available there as well. It's not like we haven't been looking at what options are available. It is just difficult because it is a body corporate, it is separate from government.
Australia's peak body for homelessness is leading calls for the federal government to pour at least $10 billion extra into its housing fund. The $10 billion Housing Australia Future Fund was announced by Labor in 2023 with a commitment to help deliver 55,000 social and affordable homes by mid-2029. Treasury figures show around 6,000 social and affordable homes have been delivered since May 2022. Head of Homelessness Australia, Kate Colvin, says the need for social housing and crisis accommodation is outstripping availability.
We want to see the government more than double the HAF because we urgently need to get to a situation where social housing is at least 6% and ideally 10% of all housing. The housing needs to be concentrated at that social housing end of the spectrum.
The founder of local charity 4 Reasons Why says she's proud of how the initiative has grown across 10 years. Mount Gambier's Trudy Shelton named the charity as a reference to her 4 children and the support she received from others while raising them as a single mum. The charity now organises donations to help support families and children who are less fortunate. Ms Shelton says she's excited about the future.
We are bigger and stronger than ever. I have a beautiful board of 7 members who are amazing and roll their sleeves up and really are passionate about the cause and giving back.
The state's local government association says it wants to see more councils offering weekly organics bin pickups across the state. It comes after the City of Mount Gambier voted to phase in weekly organics bin pickups from mid-2028. As a result, general waste bin pickups would instead occur fortnightly, alternating with recycling bins. LGA President Helen Holmes-Ross says the system has been popular in councils where it's been trialled.
Once people are educated, they really like the idea of helping. They like to be environmentally aware, and they also like that it will cost their council less, and so that should be reflected in their rates notices.
Adelaide University waste expert Dr. Robert Crocker says households have been caught in the middle of waste managers like councils and a global economy that promotes the use of cheap plastic. He says while changing waste collection systems can help, the community's consumption habits need to be considered.
Unfortunately, the user, the household, is in the middle. They're like the piggy in the middle between the producers who often just don't care. They just want to sell stuff, and the waste manager that has to actually deal with the outcome.
South Australia's Education Department has faced accusations it was disadvantaging women and parents with its leave policies for contract teachers. Former relief teacher Rachel Toyer lost her accrued long service leave while she was caring for her 8-month-old son. At the time, contract teachers would lose their entitlements if they had more than a 3-month break in service. Ms Toyer says the policy disadvantages women who predominantly make up the teaching profession.
The vast majority of those have babies. The policy affects them more than everyone else, and they are the people taking gaps in their services. But the gap is to have a baby.
The department has been hesitant to confirm the policy has changed, but it did reinstate Ms Toya's leave after months of negotiations. The department also told staff last week contract teachers can now have up to 15 months break in service for parenting responsibilities without their long service leave being affected. Education Minister Lucy Hood says contract teachers can talk to the department if they believe they've been affected.
But in terms of improving those processes in the department around providing clarity to teachers who do take extended leave for parenting reasons, that work is ongoing.
Organisers fear a lack of riders could spell the end for one of Australia's oldest road cycling races, as fuel costs cause a drop in athletes signing up for the event. Mount Gambier's 89th 100-mile classic is due to be run on Saturday, May 16, but the city's recycling club says entries are about half of what is needed to make the event financially viable. Club President John Cranwell says fewer riders from Adelaide and interstate are planning to take part due to travel costs.
If we have to cancel it because of the numbers, it's probably going to go very close to Sam the death knell for it. We would have liked to have got at least to 100, which is another 10 or 11 years on. But I can't sort of see it happening unless economic circumstances change, and that's, I think, our biggest problem at the moment.
The Mount Gambier office of a beloved horse magazine is being shut as the publication ceases printing and moves exclusively online. The final print edition of Horse Deals went on sale this week after 40 years in circulation. The magazine's office on Anthony Street is also closing, with staff being made redundant. Founder Stephen Harris says the end of the print edition is sad but inevitable.
With technology these days, they can advertise a horse now and it's online immediately, whereas a magazine, you had to wait a month before it came out. So, it was just going to happen with technology as it is now.
Give me that happy wash.
Scratch-free guarantee.
Make me feel like a limousine. Happy wash, happy car at OTR.